When we look at legends like Marie Curie, we often marvel at her incredible achievements, the 2 Nobel Prizes, the groundbreaking discoveries, the legacy of scientific progress. But what if we told you that behind every extraordinary achievement is a set of unseen sacrifices, an inner struggle that is often ignored in the history books? What if the very traits that propelled Marie Curie to the forefront of science were also the ones that carried the most heavy psychological cost? We think of success as a shining medal, but how many of us realize that the weight of that success is often felt long before it is ever celebrated? What does it take, mentally, emotionally, and psychologically, to sacrifice your personal life, your health, and even your very sense of self for the pursuit of something greater than yourself? Today, we delve into the unseen sacrifices that paved the way for Marie Curie's iconic achievements. Join us as we explore how her resilience, sacrifices, and dedication gave rise to a scientific legend, all while she navigated a world that didn't always welcome her contributions. What can her life teach us about the price of genius and the inner battles that shape true greatness? Let's dive in. Welcome to Behind the Legend. Today, we're going to take a closer look at one of the most extraordinary figures in the history of science, Marie Curie. Often remembered for her groundbreaking discoveries in radioactivity and her 2 Nobel Prizes, her story has been told countless times, but few truly understand the intense sacrifices that went into her pursuit of knowledge. In this video, we will dive deep into Marie Curie's journey, not only as a pioneering scientist, but as a woman who battled against societal expectations, financial hardship, and personal loss. Her legacy is often seen as a story of triumph, but beneath the surface, there were many unseen psychological costs. From her childhood in a politically oppressed Poland, to her early academic struggles, to the unbearable weight of grief and prejudice, Marie Curie's path was far from easy. What many don't realize is that her greatest discoveries came at the cost of much more than time or effort. They came at the expense of her own well-being, both physically and emotionally. We will explore how these sacrifices shaped not only her scientific work, but also her inner world, and how she built the psychological resilience to persevere in the face of overwhelming odds. In the process, we'll uncover how Marie Curie's story holds powerful lessons for all of us about dedication, the cost of ambition, and the strength needed to push through hardships that seem insurmountable. Stay with us as we explore Marie Curie's unparalleled resilience, unwavering determination, and the profound sacrifices that made her one of the most extraordinary minds in human history. Marie Curie was not born into the privilege of wealth or status. In fact, her early life in Poland, then part of the Russian Empire, was marked by profound challenges that would shape her character and drive her toward a future that defied the limitations of her circumstances. Born Maria Skłodowska in 1867, she grew up in a politically turbulent time, in a family struggling to make ends meet. Her father, a teacher, and her mother, a former school teacher who passed away when Marie was only 10, were both intellectuals, but their finances were strained, especially after her mother's death. This early loss, the absence of her mother's nurturing presence, deeply affected her, marking the beginning of a lifetime of coping with grief and loss. From an early age, Marie was aware of the financial hardships her family faced. Her father's income barely covered the necessities, and the family often had to make do with very little. But despite these challenges, Marie was an exceptionally bright student, eager to learn, and determined to overcome the societal constraints that tried to limit her potential. In partitioned Poland, education was often a luxury for the few, particularly for women. At that time, it was unthinkable for women to attend universities in Poland, but Marie was resolute in her pursuit of knowledge. Instead of giving in to the limitations placed on her by both her gender and her society, she sought out opportunities elsewhere, even if it meant making great personal sacrifices. In her late teens, Marie joined the clandestine Floating University, a secret organization that allowed women to continue their education in defiance of the Russian authorities who controlled the region's educational system. This period of clandestine learning was deeply formative for Marie. It not only sharpened her intellectual abilities, but also instilled in her a profound sense of resilience. She understood perhaps more clearly than anyone else, that the pursuit of knowledge was not just an academic endeavor. It was an act of resistance, of defiance against the forces that sought to limit her potential. Psychologically, this period laid the foundation for the mental fortitude that would later serve her in the most trying of circumstances. The idea of struggle, of pushing through adversity, became deeply ingrained in her psyche. She wasn't just studying to earn degrees, she was studying because it was a way of asserting her right to exist intellectually in a world that denied her that right. While this intellectual rebellion was necessary, it came with its own set of psychological challenges. The isolation that came from studying in secret, often at great personal risk, created a sense of intellectual loneliness for Marie. She was driven by a single-minded pursuit of education, but that same pursuit forced her to suppress the normal desires for connection and companionship. Her psychological world was shaped by this tension between the need to belong and the demands of her academic ambitions. This theme of isolation would follow her throughout her life. After years of struggling in Poland, Marie's path eventually led her to Paris, a city where dreams could be realized or shattered. In 1891, she made the momentous decision to leave her homeland behind and enroll at the Sorbonne, University of Paris, a decision that would change the course of her life forever. But the journey was not an easy one, and the challenges she faced in Paris would push her to the limits of her resilience. Marie arrived in Paris with little more than her academic ambition and the remnants of a meager savings. The reality of life in one of Europe's most expensive cities hit hard. For years, she lived in near poverty, struggling to pay for food, rent, and the costs of her education. The dormitories were overcrowded and uncomfortable, and her living conditions were grim. In fact, for a time, she lived in such poverty that she would often skip meals and spend her days in the university's libraries, where she could study for free. Her health deteriorated due to the strain of malnutrition and the long hours spent in the library. It was a grueling existence, one that most would have found unbearable. But Marie persisted. The psychological toll of living in such dire circumstances was immense, but it didn't break her spirit. Instead, it forged a kind of mental toughness. In those quiet, lonely hours of study, surrounded by books and the unrelenting weight of her financial burdens, Marie learned how to endure hardship. She developed a kind of stoic resolve, choosing to push through the discomfort rather than give in to it. Yet the most significant psychological burden Marie faced in Paris was not the poverty itself, it was the isolation that came with it. As a woman in a male-dominated academic environment, she often felt like an outsider. The university was dominated by men, and while women were allowed to study, they were rarely acknowledged in the same way as their male peers. She faced the psychological challenge of constantly proving herself in an environment that often didn't value her presence. This experience of gender-based discrimination was a profound psychological trial that would shape her understanding of both herself and the world around her. But, despite the oppressive atmosphere, Marie Curie's determination never wavered. She excelled academically, eventually earning a degree in physics. In fact, she became the first woman to earn a degree in physics at the Sorbonne, a monumental achievement in and of itself. However, her success came not only as a result of her intellect, but as a direct consequence of her ability to endure. Every challenge, every setback, and every hardship became fuel for her determination. She had learned how to turn adversity into a driving force, building mental and emotional resilience along the way. Psychologically speaking, this period in Marie's life was formative in another important way. It was during this time that she learned to compartmentalize her emotions and focus relentlessly on her work. She faced tremendous personal loss, grueling poverty, and harsh gender-based discrimination, but instead of succumbing to these pressures, she channeled them into her studies. Marie developed the ability to shut out the external world when she needed to and immerse herself fully in her intellectual pursuits. This focused, almost single-minded dedication would become one of her defining characteristics in the years to come. This period of hardship also marked the beginning of her partnership with Pierre Curie. Their collaboration would not only shape the course of science, but also play a pivotal role in Marie's psychological development. But before we dive into the dynamics of their relationship, it's important to understand the mental framework that Marie had built through years of struggle. Her resilience, her ability to work in isolation, and her determination to press on, despite the harshest conditions, laid the foundation for everything that would follow. In 1894, Marie Curie met Pierre Curie, a professor of physics at the University of Paris. Their meeting, initially professional, soon blossomed into a deep intellectual partnership, and eventually a personal one. Together, they would embark on a journey that would change the course of science forever. But this partnership was not just one of academic collaboration. It was a partnership of sacrifice, of shared hardship, and of mutual dedication to the pursuit of truth. When Marie and Pierre began their work on the phenomenon of radioactivity, their lab conditions were far from ideal. The makeshift laboratory was cramped and poorly equipped, and the couple faced immense difficulty securing the necessary funding for their research. But despite these obstacles, Marie and Pierre worked tirelessly, often for long hours, in an environment that was far from conducive to scientific discovery. The physical toll on their bodies was significant. Long hours spent handling radioactive materials, often with little regard for safety precautions, led to a gradual decline in their health. Psychologically, the sacrifices that Marie and Pierre made were profound. Their work was consuming, and the nature of their partnership meant that both of them were equally invested in the success of their research. There was a shared sense of purpose, but there was also a shared sense of sacrifice. Pierre's commitment to Marie's success was evident, but so was Marie's commitment to his vision. In many ways, their relationship embodied a balance of emotional and intellectual support, one that allowed them to endure the hardships of their work and keep pushing forward. But as the years wore on, the physical cost of their research became undeniable. The couple's exposure to radiation, then an unknown and dangerous element, gradually took its toll on their bodies. Marie, in particular, showed no signs of slowing down, even as her health began to deteriorate. This relentless drive, however, came at a price. In a deeply psychological sense, Marie's sense of identity and purpose became inextricably linked to her work. Her self-worth was tied to the progress they made in the lab, to the recognition they hoped would come with their discoveries. She was willing to sacrifice her own well-being and even her life for the sake of scientific advancement. Their sacrifices were not just physical. Marie's relationship with Pierre was also marked by emotional strain. While they were intellectually in sync, the intensity of their work and the pressures of their respective roles as researchers often left little room for personal connection. Their partnership, though founded on mutual respect and shared goals, was one defined by the weight of their commitments. Pierre's untimely death in 1906, after they had made their most groundbreaking discoveries, was a devastating blow to Marie, not just personally, but professionally as well. In the blink of an eye, she lost both her partner and her collaborator. In the wake of Pierre's death, Marie faced a psychological crisis. The shock of losing her husband and intellectual partner left her grief-stricken, and she was forced to contend with the emotional weight of her sacrifices. The woman who had built her life around the pursuit of knowledge and the partnership with Pierre now found herself facing the isolation and loss that had been a constant but silent companion throughout her journey. Yet, in the face of this overwhelming grief, Marie chose not to step away from her work. Instead, she redoubled her efforts, not only completing their research, but also continuing it on her own. She pushed through the psychological pain of her loss, driven by a sense of duty to Pierre's legacy and a belief that the work they had started together was too important to abandon. In many ways, this period marked a new chapter in Marie's life, a chapter defined not by the partnership she had once shared with Pierre, but by her own singular commitment to science. Her resilience during this time was extraordinary. It was not just a matter of intellectual determination, it was a matter of emotional fortitude. Marie had learned, through years of struggle and sacrifice, how to navigate profound loss and continue forward. Her psychological strength in the face of adversity was a defining trait of her character, and it would carry her through the darkest years of her life. This period also marked Marie's increasing visibility within the scientific community. As her discoveries gained recognition, so too did the scrutiny that came with it. But as we'll see, recognition and success also came with new challenges that would test her psychological resilience in ways she hadn't anticipated. Marie Curie's second Nobel Prize, awarded in 1911, was a monumental achievement. She became the first person, and still the only woman, to receive a Nobel Prize in two different scientific fields, physics and chemistry. However, rather than a triumphant moment of pure celebration, the recognition was also marred by a fierce public backlash that stemmed not only from her gender, but also from her status as a foreigner in a male-dominated world of science. The initial reaction to Marie Curie's discoveries was mixed. While some celebrated her brilliance and groundbreaking work on radioactivity, others were more skeptical, often due to her being a woman in a field where female presence was rare and often unwelcome. Yet when Marie was awarded her second Nobel Prize in 1911, the response was anything but celebratory for many. Far from being the universally admired figure she might have expected, she became the target of intense criticism, not just for her scientific work, but for her personal life. At the center of the controversy was her romantic involvement with Paul Langevin, a married man and fellow scientist. The affair, which began after Pierre Curie's death, became the focus of an intense media frenzy. French tabloids published derogatory articles about Marie's character, casting her as morally corrupt and a threat to the moral fabric of the scientific community. For the first time in her life, Marie found herself under a harsh public microscope, not for her achievements, but for her personal life and her defiance of societal norms. Psychologically, this public humiliation was a heavy blow. Marie had spent years cultivating an identity centered on intellectual pursuit, and now, with her personal life laid bare for public judgment, she found herself facing the harsh reality of societal expectations. To be a woman in science had already placed her on the fringes of respectability. Now, to be scrutinized as a homewrecker threatened to undo the very legacy she had worked so tirelessly to build. Yet, in the face of this public shaming, Marie did not back down. The psychological resilience she had developed in her earlier years of struggle, when she faced the isolation and hardships of being a woman in academia, now proved to be invaluable. Rather than withdrawing or succumbing to the pressure of public opinion, she chose to continue her work. She did not retreat from the spotlight. Instead, she embraced it and carried on with her research, determined to not let her achievements be overshadowed by the scandal. It is crucial to understand the psychological toll that this public scrutiny took on Marie Curie. She had already lost so much in her life: her mother, her father, her beloved husband Pierre. And now, the very thing she had fought so hard to protect, her scientific legacy, was under attack. Her internal sense of justice and dedication to her work was tested like never before. The public's judgment was one of the cruelest forms of adversity she had faced. Yet it was precisely this kind of external pressure that forged her emotional toughness. What is remarkable is that, despite the challenges, Marie Curie's response was one of focus and defiance. She did not become bitter or discouraged. Instead, she leaned into her passion for her work. Marie's emotional resilience became an essential tool in her ability to navigate both the personal and professional crises she faced. Her ability to compartmentalize, to separate the external noise from her internal mission, allowed her to keep moving forward. In many ways, the recognition Marie received, while it brought her closer to the scientific community's highest honors, also served as a reminder of how precarious that recognition could be for a woman. In the midst of her fame, Marie Curie was still faced with the question of her place in the world of science and whether her contributions would ever be fully appreciated on their own merit. She faced the paradox of being both lauded for her discoveries and criticized for stepping outside of accepted societal norms. Her ability to continue her work despite this intense public pressure demonstrates the strength of her psychological resolve. It is an extraordinary lesson in the power of mental toughness. How, even in the face of overwhelming external forces, a person can persevere when they are grounded in a sense of purpose and dedication to their work. This period of intense scrutiny ultimately did not diminish Marie Curie's reputation within the scientific community. In fact, her ability to weather the storm only further solidified her status as one of the greatest scientists of all time. However, the toll it took on her psychological well-being cannot be understated. It is a stark reminder that success, while often celebrated externally, is frequently accompanied by hidden struggles and burdens that only the individual truly feels. Marie Curie's journey through life is a testament not only to her exceptional scientific talent, but also to her unparalleled psychological resilience. While we often look at her achievements through the lens of her 2 Nobel Prizes, it's critical to acknowledge that these prizes were not just the result of her intelligence, they were the product of her unyielding persistence in the face of adversity. One of the most important lessons we can draw from Marie Curie's life is that groundbreaking success doesn't come easily. It requires a level of sacrifice, dedication, and resilience that few people are willing to endure. Her journey teaches us that true innovation often involves pushing through not just intellectual barriers, but also emotional and psychological ones. Marie Curie's story challenges the notion of effortless success, showing us that every major accomplishment has a hidden cost. Her life also serves as a profound reminder that resilience is not simply about bouncing back from hardship, it's about persevering in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds. Marie didn't just endure her struggles, she used them to fuel her drive. Every challenge she faced, from the loss of her mother, to the financial struggles of her early academic years, to the devastating loss of her husband and the public humiliation she endured, became an integral part of her journey. In each case, her psychological fortitude allowed her to not only continue, but to thrive in ways that most people would have found impossible. This is perhaps one of the most valuable lessons we can take from her story. Resilience isn't about avoiding hardship. It's about embracing it, learning from it, and finding ways to grow stronger because of it. Marie Curie didn't run away from the difficulties in her life. Instead, she met each challenge head-on, using her internal drive and belief in the importance of her work as her compass. Marie's relentless pursuit of knowledge also exemplifies a powerful psychological principle: purpose. Having a clear sense of purpose can be a tremendous force in one's life. For Marie, this purpose was scientific discovery. She believed in the transformative power of science, not just for the sake of innovation, but for the potential it had to change the world for the better. Her unwavering commitment to this purpose gave her the strength to overcome personal loss, financial instability, and societal discrimination. In essence, her sense of purpose was her psychological anchor, keeping her focused even when the storm of adversity threatened to derail her. Additionally, Marie Curie's story emphasizes the importance of self-belief. Despite the odds stacked against her, despite the voices telling her she couldn't achieve her dreams because of her gender, her background, or her personal circumstances, she never wavered in her belief in herself. She trusted her abilities, even when the world did not. This self-belief, combined with a fierce dedication to her purpose, allowed her to persist through the most trying of times. Marie Curie's life also brings to light the importance of sacrifice. She made countless personal sacrifices in the pursuit of her work. She sacrificed her health, her time, her social life, and at times, her happiness. The story of her sacrifices serves as a reminder that nothing of great value comes without cost. However, it also teaches us that these sacrifices, though painful, are often the stepping stones to achieving something truly remarkable. Sacrifice, in the pursuit of something greater than ourselves, is a recurring theme in the lives of the most influential figures in history. And while it may be uncomfortable to think about the toll these sacrifices take, they are an undeniable part of the journey toward greatness. Finally, Marie Curie's story teaches us the value of perseverance. It's easy to look at her accomplishments and think that she had some inherent advantage that made her journey easier. But when we dig deeper, we realize that her journey was marked by relentless persistence in the face of setbacks. Whether it was overcoming the limitations placed on her as a woman in science, navigating financial hardship, enduring personal loss, or facing public criticism, Marie never stopped moving forward. She understood that failure was not a stopping point. It was just another step in the process of learning and growing. Her psychological resilience was built through years of enduring and overcoming adversity. She didn't simply survive. She used every hardship as an opportunity for growth, pushing herself beyond what others, and even what she herself, believed was possible. In a world that often values instant success and rewards, Marie Curie's life is a powerful reminder that true greatness requires time, sacrifice, and an unwavering commitment to one's goals. It is an affirmation that greatness does not come without effort, and that the internal struggles and challenges that often accompany the pursuit of extraordinary achievements are not weaknesses. They are the very things that shape us into who we are meant to become. As we reflect on Marie Curie's extraordinary life and her psychological resilience, the question arises: how can we apply the lessons from her journey to our own lives? What can we learn from the personal and emotional sacrifices she made to fuel her relentless pursuit of scientific discovery? And how can we implement these principles to push through the obstacles we face in our own paths? The first lesson from Marie Curie's life is the power of focus. Curie had an extraordinary ability to focus on her work in the face of overwhelming hardship. Her ability to shut out distractions, whether they were the pressures of poverty, public scrutiny, or personal grief, was a key element of her success. She showed us that in order to achieve something monumental, you must develop the discipline to focus on what truly matters. In our own lives, this means identifying our deepest purpose and making it our anchor. When we become clear on what we are striving for, we can more easily block out the distractions and obstacles that might otherwise derail us. In practical terms, cultivating this focus can be done by setting clear, meaningful goals and structuring your day or week around achieving them. Break your goals into smaller, manageable tasks and create a routine that allows you to dedicate uninterrupted time to your most important work. Learning to say no to distractions, whether they come in the form of unproductive habits or external pressures, is crucial to building the kind of focus that leads to success. Curie's success wasn't just about intelligence, it was about prioritizing her work above all else, no matter the cost. The second lesson is the importance of embracing challenges. Marie Curie's life was marked by almost relentless adversity. From the loss of her mother at a young age, to the poverty she experienced in Paris, to the deep grief after losing her husband Pierre, Marie faced an unbroken series of challenges. Yet through it all, she learned to turn these difficulties into fuel for her ambition. She didn't shy away from adversity. She used it to grow stronger, to refine her purpose, and to push herself further. In our own lives, challenges are inevitable. Whether we're pursuing career goals, striving for personal growth, or navigating relationships, hardship is a part of the human experience. But instead of viewing challenges as insurmountable barriers, we can choose to see them as opportunities for growth. The next time you face a challenge, ask yourself, how can this experience make me stronger? How can I grow from this? Marie Curie's life is a testament to the power of facing challenges head-on and finding the strength to keep moving forward, even when the path seems unclear. Third, sacrifice is an essential part of achieving greatness. Marie Curie's sacrifices were not just physical, they were emotional and psychological. She sacrificed time with her family, her health, and in many ways, her personal happiness in order to achieve her scientific breakthroughs. While we don't always have to make such extreme sacrifices, the principle remains true. Achieving something meaningful often requires us to give up something in return. Whether it's time, comfort, or leisure, sacrifice is a key part of the equation. To apply this to your own life, consider what you are willing to give up in order to achieve your goals. Are you willing to put in the extra hours at work, the time to learn a new skill, or the discipline to maintain a healthy routine? True growth requires discipline, and sacrifice is often a necessary component of that discipline. Be clear about what you want, and then be willing to do the hard work, sometimes with less immediate reward, in order to see the long-term benefits. Self-belief is another powerful takeaway from Curie's story. Marie Curie's unwavering belief in herself was a driving force behind her success. Even when the world around her doubted her ability to achieve greatness, she knew she could. Her confidence in her own abilities, grounded in her intellectual prowess and a deep sense of purpose, allowed her to push forward in the face of adversity. For us, building self-belief begins with acknowledging our own strengths and abilities. It's easy to become discouraged by setbacks, but just as Curie did, we can find strength in our purpose and our potential. Practice positive self-talk, set achievable milestones, and surround yourself with people who believe in your goals. The more you believe in yourself and your mission, the easier it will be to push through challenges and emerge victorious. Finally, Marie Curie's life teaches us the profound importance of perseverance. No matter what life threw her way, whether it was personal grief, public ridicule, or physical exhaustion, she persisted. Her life was a constant cycle of rising up after setbacks and pushing forward in pursuit of her work. And ultimately, it was this perseverance that led her to become a Nobel Prize winner and a trailblazer in her field. In your own life, perseverance is often what separates success from failure. It's not enough to have big dreams. You need the persistence to keep going when things get tough. Break down your goals into manageable steps, and when you encounter challenges, which you will, remind yourself of the bigger picture. Trust that every setback is an opportunity to grow and learn, and don't let temporary failures stop you from achieving your ultimate vision. By internalizing these principles, focus, embracing challenges, sacrifice, self-belief, and perseverance, you can cultivate a mindset that allows you to pursue your goals with the same relentless dedication that defined Marie Curie's extraordinary life. As we reflect on Marie Curie's journey, it's important to address some of the more nuanced psychological aspects of her life, especially the complexities of her work, her role as a female pioneer, and the immense emotional toll of her sacrifices. These nuances provide a deeper understanding of what made her not just a brilliant scientist, but also a profoundly resilient human being. One of the most challenging aspects of Marie Curie's scientific career was the psychological impact of working with dangerous materials. She was at the forefront of the discovery of radioactivity, a field that was still in its infancy and lacked the safety protocols we take for granted today. Curie's work with radioactive substances, including radium and polonium, was conducted with little understanding of the risks involved. Over time, these materials began to take a heavy toll on her health. The radiation she was exposed to would eventually lead to the illnesses that claimed her life, but at the time, she remained unaware of the dangers she was facing. For Marie, the decision to work with radioactive materials wasn't just a scientific pursuit, it was also an act of sacrifice. She was willing to risk her health for the sake of scientific progress, knowing that her discoveries could revolutionize the world. This willingness to sacrifice her own well-being is a powerful reminder of the psychological commitment required to make groundbreaking discoveries. She wasn't just following her intellectual curiosity, she was following a mission that she believed could make the world a better place. In many ways, this blind dedication to her cause mirrors the mindset of many groundbreaking innovators. The pursuit of knowledge and the desire to contribute something greater than themselves sometimes overshadow their awareness of the personal costs involved. But the psychological toll of her work didn't just come from the physical dangers of radioactivity. It also stemmed from the emotional burden of being a female pioneer in a patriarchal system. Throughout her career, Marie faced prejudice and discrimination, not just because of her gender, but because of her status as a foreigner in France. At the time, science was overwhelmingly dominated by men, and female scientists were often marginalized or ignored. For Marie, this meant constantly having to prove herself in a field that wasn't necessarily welcoming to her. Her groundbreaking discoveries in radioactivity were often downplayed, and her contributions to the field were sometimes overshadowed by the achievements of her male colleagues. Psychologically, this created a deep sense of isolation for Marie. She had few peers who truly understood her struggles or her drive. While she did receive support from her husband Pierre and a few close colleagues, the broader scientific community often treated her as an outsider. This kind of professional isolation, combined with the emotional strain of being constantly scrutinized for her gender, would have been incredibly difficult to bear. It required an extraordinary amount of mental toughness to persist in the face of such prejudice, to not internalize the biases of others, and to continue her work despite the systemic barriers she faced. Another deeply complex aspect of Marie Curie's psychology was the interplay of personal ambition with altruistic scientific goals. On the one hand, Marie was undeniably driven by a deep personal ambition to contribute to the advancement of science and to secure her place in history as a leading scientist. On the other hand, she also had a strong sense of altruism. She believed that her work, particularly in the field of radioactivity, could benefit humanity in profound ways. The discovery of radium, for example, was not just a personal triumph for Marie. It held the potential to revolutionize medicine, especially in the treatment of cancer. But it also meant that Marie was constantly grappling with the tension between her personal ambitions and her desire to improve the world. This internal conflict is one that many people experience in their own lives, especially those driven by a deep sense of purpose. The desire to achieve personal success can sometimes feel at odds with the desire to serve others, to contribute to something larger than oneself. But for Marie, these two elements were not mutually exclusive. She found a way to channel her personal ambition into a broader mission for the good of humanity. This balancing act between personal achievement and altruistic goals was one of the defining features of her psychological journey. Lastly, it's important to consider the emotional cost of ambition. Marie Curie's ambition was fueled by a profound sense of duty to science and to the world, but this ambition also came with significant emotional costs. Her dedication to her work often came at the expense of her personal life and relationships. While she did have a deep bond with her husband Pierre, much of her time and energy was devoted to her research. After Pierre's tragic death, Marie threw herself even further into her work, often at the cost of her own emotional well-being. This level of ambition can sometimes be isolating, as it requires a level of self-sacrifice that not everyone is willing to make. Psychologically, this sense of emotional sacrifice can create a deep internal conflict. On one hand, ambition drives us to achieve great things, but on the other hand, it can lead us to neglect our own emotional needs. Marie's story is a reminder that ambition, while powerful, can sometimes create a disconnection from other aspects of life. It challenges us to think about the balance between pursuing our dreams and nurturing the emotional connections that give life meaning. By addressing these deeper psychological elements, we can see how Marie Curie's personal journey was shaped not only by her intellectual brilliance, but by the complex emotional landscape she navigated. Her story is not just one of scientific discovery. It's a testament to the profound emotional and psychological strength required to push through the limitations of both society and self, to sacrifice, to persevere, and to achieve something truly extraordinary. Marie Curie's life and legacy are the epitome of dedication, resilience, and the power of internal conviction. At first glance, her 2 Nobel Prizes might seem to represent the peak of scientific achievement, the ultimate reward for a lifetime of groundbreaking research. But as we delve deeper into her story, it becomes clear that her success was not merely the result of intellectual prowess. It was built upon a foundation of psychological strength, emotional sacrifices, and the unwavering belief in her mission. The core message of Marie Curie's journey is this: greatness often comes at a price. It's not just about making brilliant discoveries or achieving external recognition. True breakthroughs in science and in life are often the result of enduring hardships, sacrificing comfort, personal happiness, and even health in the pursuit of something greater than oneself. Curie's story teaches us that success requires an unrelenting commitment to our purpose, the willingness to sacrifice in the short term for long-term gain, and the mental fortitude to push through adversity, no matter how overwhelming the challenges may seem. Marie Curie's life also underscores the importance of resilience in the face of failure and loss. Her ability to endure profound personal tragedy, societal prejudice, and physical hardship without losing sight of her mission is a testament to the power of perseverance. She never allowed external setbacks or public scrutiny to deter her from her scientific goals. Instead, she turned these challenges into fuel, proving that our internal strength and determination can guide us through even the darkest times. Ultimately, Curie's story is not just a scientific one. It is a deeply human story about the price of achievement, the emotional resilience needed to weather life's storms, and the enduring legacy of a woman who refused to be defined by anything but her own sense of purpose. Her journey demonstrates that true greatness comes from embracing the struggle, from acknowledging the sacrifices, and from finding the strength to keep moving forward, no matter the obstacles. We are all capable of this kind of resilience, this kind of dedication. If we are willing to commit to something greater than ourselves, to sacrifice for the things we believe in, and to persevere when the world feels like it's pushing us down, we too can create something lasting and impactful in our own lives. Marie Curie's life is a living testament to the incredible power of resilience, sacrifice, and unwavering dedication to one's mission. But how can we apply these lessons in our own lives? If you found inspiration in Marie Curie's journey, we encourage you to reflect on your own goals and challenges. What sacrifices are you willing to make for the things that matter most to you? How can you embrace adversity as an opportunity to grow stronger? And most importantly, what is the greater purpose that drives you forward? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Share your reflections in the comments below and join the conversation. Remember, your journey, just like Marie Curie's, has the potential to change the world. So, take that first step today with resilience, focus, and an unwavering commitment to your dreams. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with anyone who could use a reminder of what it truly takes to achieve greatness. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey through the life of Marie Curie. Her legacy continues to inspire and remind us that even the greatest achievements come with hidden struggles and sacrifices. We hope her story empowers you to pursue your own passions with unwavering dedication, no matter the challenges you may face. Until next time, stay focused, stay resilient, and keep pursuing greatness.